The story of this night is not loud, it is not rushed, and it does not demand your full attention. It is a story meant to be heard, while the body rests and the mind drifts gently. Tonight, we will travel across thousands of years without hurry, following the quiet path of a small dark seed that changed the way human beings think, work, pray, and remain awake. If at any moment you fall asleep, the story will continue without you, because this is the complete history of coffee. For most of human history, night was truly night. When the sun disappeared, the world slowed down with it. Conversations faded, work stopped, thought itself surrendered to fatigue. Human life followed the rhythm of light, and rest was not a choice, but an unavoidable necessity, until, slowly, something began to change. Not suddenly, not violently, but quietly. It began in a calm place, green and high above sea level, the highlands of Ethiopia. In the highlands of what we now call Ethiopia, long before precise maps or written records existed, a modest shrub grew naturally. It had glossy leaves and small red fruits that ripened beneath the African sun. For centuries, this plant simply existed. Local communities knew it well, but they did not worship it. They did not trade it. They did not build daily rituals around it. They used it simply and practically. They chewed its fruits to endure long journeys. They mixed it with animal fat to sustain energy. They consumed it before hunts, travel, or extended physical effort. Coffee was not born as a drink, it was born as endurance. An old legend. Over time, a quiet story began to circulate. The legend of a young goat herder named Kaldi. It is said that Kaldi noticed something unusual among his animals. After eating certain red berries, his goats did not sleep. They jumped, they moved restlessly. They seemed filled with a gentle but lasting energy. Curious, Kaldi tasted the berries himself. He did not feel intoxicated. He did not feel euphoric. He felt awake, as if sleep had stepped slightly aside. Without fully leaving, Kaldi brought the berries to a nearby monastery. The monks, uncertain and cautious, threw them into the fire. And then something unexpected happened. The air filled with a warm, deep aroma, unknown and strangely comforting. The roasted beans were rescued from the embers, ground, and mixed with hot water. Without knowing it, a door had been opened that would never fully close again. Though the story of Kaldi is likely a myth, it carries an important truth. Coffee was discovered, not for its flavor, but for its effect. From daily use to ritual. For a long time, coffee remained in East Africa. It was not a luxury. It was not a commodity. It was part of everyday life. It was prepared in many ways. Boiled, fermented, shared. Coffee was communal, long before it was commercial, cultural, before it was global. But the world was beginning to move, and coffee was about to travel. Crossing the Red Sea, between the 9th and 10th centuries, coffee slowly crossed into the Arabian Peninsula. It was in Yemen that it found a new purpose. There, Sufi mystics began to drink a dark infusion they called kahwa. They used it to remain awake during long nights of prayer, meditation, and rhythmic chanting. Coffee was not a pleasure. It was not a vice. It was a quiet aid. It awakened the body to sustain the spirit. The birth of modern coffee. In Yemen, the method we recognize today was refined. Beans were carefully roasted, ground slowly, simmered with patience. The result was bitter, intense, and deeply stimulating. Yemeni ports, especially Mocha, became centers of distribution. For centuries, coffee was a closely guarded secret. Beans leaving the region were often boiled beforehand to prevent them from growing elsewhere. Coffee was power, and power was protected. A suspicious drink. Not everyone trusted it. Some religious leaders considered it dangerous. Others compared it to alcohol. There were bans, there were debates, there were punishments, but coffee had something unstoppable. It allowed wakefulness without confusion. It allowed thought when the body asked for rest. Slowly, it became impossible to ignore. The first coffee houses. In cities across the Islamic world, new spaces began to appear. places dedicated entirely to coffee. Inside, voices stayed low. Poetry, religion, trade, and ideas were discussed. Thoughts were exchanged. They were not taverns. They were not temples. They were something new. Places for the awake mind. Without realizing it, coffee was shaping a new kind of society, a society that could think at night. As coffee slowly left the mountains and deserts of the Islamic world, Europe was still a very different place. Nights were heavy. Cities went dark early. Most people drank alcohol instead of water. Ale was common at breakfast. Wine accompanied daily meals. The mind was often foggy. The body was frequently tired. Clarity was rare, and long, focused thought was a privilege of very few. Europe had not yet learned how to stay awake, but that was about to change. First whispers of a strange drink, European travelers returning from the Ottoman Empire, began to speak of a dark beverage. It was bitter, hot, stimulating. They said it kept people awake without making them drunk, alert without confusion. At first, coffee sounded suspicious. A drink from the Muslim world, a black liquid consumed in strange houses, a substance that altered wakefulness. Some called it the wine of Islam. Others feared it. Coffee arrives by sea. By the early 1600s, coffee began arriving at European ports. Venice was among the first. Merchants unloaded sacks of unfamiliar beans. Doctors examined them. Priests debated them. Pharmacists sold them as medicine. Coffee was expensive, rare, exotic. It was consumed cautiously, often in private homes, sometimes in secret. The religious debate. As coffee spread, so did controversy. Some Christian leaders claimed it was sinful. Others argued it was an intoxicant. There were calls for prohibition. The debate reached the Vatican. According to tradition, Pope Clement VIII was asked to judge the drink. He tasted it, and instead of condemning it, he approved it. Some say he joked that it would be a shame to leave such a delicious drink only to unbelievers. Whether legend or truth, the result was clear. Coffee was allowed, and once it was allowed, it spread. The first European coffee houses. In 1650, England opened its first coffee house. Oxford first, then London. These were not places for comfort. They were loud, crowded, filled with debate. Coffee houses charged a penny for entry, which included a cup of coffee and access to conversation. They were soon called penny universities. Inside, students sat beside merchants. Writers argued with sailors. Scientists spoke with politicians, all awake, all alert, all caffeinated. A radical change in thinking. Coffee houses became centers of thought. Newspapers were read aloud. Pamphlets were written. Ideas were tested in conversation. Unlike taverns, people left coffee houses clear-headed. This mattered. Historians would later argue that coffee helped fuel the Enlightenment. Reason replaced superstition. Debate replaced dogma. Wakefulness replaced stupor. Coffee did not create these ideas, but it supported them. It gave the mind time, coffee, and commerce. Business quickly followed. In London coffee houses, insurance companies were born. Shipping routes were planned. Financial markets emerged. One small coffee house would later become Lloyd's of London. Coffee was no longer just a drink. It was infrastructure, the drink of work. As coffee spread through Europe, it began replacing alcohol. Workers drank coffee in the morning instead of beer. Productivity increased. Accuracy improved. Mistakes decreased. Factories ran longer. Offices stayed open later. Cities grew louder at night. Coffee aligned perfectly with the rising industrial world. Fear of too much thinking. Not everyone welcomed this change. Kings feared coffee houses. Governments watched them closely. Too many ideas, too much discussion, too much awareness. Charles II of England attempted to ban coffee houses. He failed. Once people learned how to stay awake together, there was no going back, from luxury to necessity. By the late 1600s, coffee was everywhere. Still expensive, but increasingly common. It was no longer a curiosity. It was a habit Europe had adopted. The rhythm of coffee, morning wakefulness, afternoon clarity, extended evenings, human time itself, was expanding. A quiet transformation. Coffee did not arrive as a conqueror. It did not force itself upon Europe. It whispered. It spread slowly. It waited. And over time, it reshaped how people worked, how they thought, and how long they stayed awake. The continent was changing. And beyond Europe, the world was watching. As Europe learned to live with coffee, a quiet problem began to appear. Coffee was no longer a novelty. It was no longer a luxury. It had become a daily necessity, and necessities demand supply. The problem with Yemen. For a long time, nearly all coffee came from one place, Yemen. Its ports controlled the flow. Its traders guarded the beans. Its methods prevented cultivation elsewhere. Europe depended on a distant land for its most important stimulant. This dependence was uncomfortable. Empires do not like to rely on others for what keeps them awake. So they began to experiment, smuggling a seed. According to several historical accounts, the turning point came quietly. A single living coffee plant was smuggled out of Yemen. Some stories say it was hidden inside a traveler's belongings. Others say it passed through diplomatic hands. However it happened, the result was the same. Coffee was no longer trapped. The Dutch and the first plantations. The Dutch were among the first to act on this opportunity. They planted coffee in their colonies, first in India, then in Java. The climate was ideal. The yields were high. For the first time, coffee was grown deliberately, systematically, and for profit. The monopoly was broken. From plant to commodity, coffee changed once it became a plantation crop. It was no longer local, no longer communal, no longer spiritual. It became measurable, exportable, taxable. Coffee was now part of the global machine, France and the New World. Soon, other empires followed. France planted coffee in the Caribbean. The plant reached Martinique. From there, it spread rapidly. Within decades, coffee was growing across Central and South America. The conditions were perfect, but the cost was high. The hidden foundation. Coffee plantations required labor, a lot of it, and much of that labor came from enslaved people. Millions were forced to work, harvesting, processing, and transporting coffee. The calm cup of coffee hid a violent system beneath it. This reality was rarely discussed in European coffee houses, but it powered them all the same. Brazil rises. In the 19th century, Brazil emerged as the dominant force. Its land was vast. Its labor was cheap. Its production was unmatched. Coffee reshaped Brazil's economy, its cities, its politics. Railroads were built for coffee, ports expanded for coffee, entire regions lived for coffee. By the late 1800s, Brazil supplied the majority of the world's coffee. Coffee in industrial time. As coffee production expanded, industrial life intensified. Factories demanded alert workers. Clerks needed long focus. Soldiers required endurance. Coffee fit perfectly. It kept people awake without slowing them down, without clouding judgment. Time itself began to change. Work days stretched, nights shortened. Sleep was delayed. Coffee became the guardian of industrial time, the normalization of stimulation. What once felt extraordinary now felt normal. To wake up tired was no longer acceptable. Fatigue became a problem to solve. Sleep became an obstacle to manage. Coffee was the solution. A quiet one, a socially accepted one, the global taste. As production increased, coffee became cheaper. More people drank it. Every class, every profession, different cultures adapted it. Strong, weak, sweet, bitter. But the effect was the same. Wakefulness, a world that does not sleep. By the end of the 19th century, coffee had completed its transformation from forest plant to global commodity, from ritual drink to economic engine. The world was now awake longer than ever before, and it would never return to its old rhythm, a quiet moment. As you listen now, perhaps with eyes growing heavy, it is worth remembering. The drink that once helped monks stay awake now surrounds a world that struggles to rest. Coffee had won, and in the next chapter, it would become even more powerful. As Europe slowly grew accustomed to coffee, a quiet tension began to form beneath the surface. At first, coffee had been exciting, new, exotic. Then it became familiar. And once something becomes familiar, it becomes necessary. By the late 17th century, millions of people across Europe were beginning their mornings with the same dark ritual. They woke, they drank, they stayed awake. And without realizing it, entire societies were now dependent on a plant that did not grow on their land. A drink that cannot be interrupted, coffee was no longer optional. Merchants needed it to negotiate. Writers needed it to focus. Clerks needed it to calculate. Soldiers needed it to endure long hours. To interrupt the flow of coffee was to interrupt thought itself. And yet, almost all of it came from one region of the world, Yemen, a small area holding enormous power, the Yemeni monopoly. For generations, Yemen controlled coffee with care. The ports were watched, the beans were guarded, exports were regulated. Seeds that left the country were often boiled or roasted to prevent them from growing elsewhere. Coffee was not just a crop, it was leverage. European traders understood this. Empires understood this even more clearly. And empires do not tolerate dependence. The desire to control wakefulness. Coffee was different from other goods. Spices flavored food, silk decorated bodies, gold stored value. But coffee controlled time. It stretched the day. It shortened the night. It altered human endurance. To control coffee was to control the rhythm of life. And so the search began, quietly, patiently, relentlessly. The smuggling of life. Somewhere in the late 17th century, the monopoly cracked. A living coffee plant, or fertile seed, left Yemen alive. No announcement was made. No celebration followed. History often turns on moments that go unnoticed. The plant traveled. It survived. And once it was planted elsewhere, everything changed. The Dutch experiment. The Dutch, masters of trade and patience, were among the first to succeed. They planted coffee in their colonial territories. India first, then Java. The climate was gentle, the soil was rich. The harvests were consistent. Coffee thrived. For the first time, it was no longer rare, no longer mysterious. It was cultivated deliberately, measured carefully, and exported efficiently. Coffee had entered the age of calculation. From plant to system, plantations expanded. Rows replaced forests. Schedules replaced seasons. Profit replaced ritual. Coffee was no longer shared. It was extracted. Each bean became a number. Each sack became currency. The calm drink of reflection was now tied to contracts, ships, and distant markets. The spread of empire. Other European powers followed quickly. France carried coffee to the Caribbean. One plant reached Martinique, and from that single origin, millions would descend. Coffee crossed islands, crossed borders, crossed oceans. Soon it covered hillsides, from Central America to South America. The world was being replanted for wakefulness, the silent cost. But coffee demanded labor, endless labor. The plants needed care. The beans needed harvesting. Processing required hands, and those hands were often forced. Enslaved men and women worked beneath the sun, producing a drink they would never taste freely. Coffee houses in Europe grew louder, more intellectual, more confident. Plantations grew quieter, more brutal, more exhausted. Two worlds connected by a cup, Brazil and scale. In the 19th century, Brazil transformed coffee forever. Its land seemed endless. Its workforce was coerced. Its ambition was vast. Coffee reshaped the nation. Railroads were built, not for people, but for beans. Cities expanded. Around export routes, coffee dictated politics, wealth, and power. By the late 1800s, Brazil dominated the global supply. Coffee had found its industrial heart. Time becomes a resource. As coffee production increased, the pace of life accelerated. Factories demanded punctuality. Offices demanded concentration. Militaries demanded endurance. Coffee supported it all. Sleep became negotiable. Fatigue became a flaw. Rest became inefficient. Coffee was no longer a personal choice. It was an expectation, the normalization of stimulation. Generations grew up knowing nothing else. Waking tired felt wrong. Needing rest felt weak. Coffee was the answer to every form of exhaustion, quietly accepted, socially encouraged, no ceremony required, a world permanently awake. By the end of the 19th century, coffee had completed its transformation from wild plant to global engine, from sacred aid to economic necessity. The world had learned how to stay awake, and forgetting how to rest would become its next problem, a soft pause. As this story continues, your body may be slowing, breath deepening, thoughts drifting. That is natural. Coffee reshaped the waking world. But tonight, there is no need to stay awake. As coffee spread across the world, changing economies, empires, and cities, something quieter was happening. Something smaller, closer, more intimate. Coffee was entering the human body, not as a symbol, not as a commodity, but as a chemical presence. And the body began to respond. The first questions. At first, people did not know why coffee worked. They only knew that it did. It kept the eyes open. It sharpened attention. It delayed sleep. Doctors speculated. Philosophers debated. Merchants simply drank. Coffee became routine long before it became understood. The discovery of caffeine in the early 19th century, science finally caught up. Chemists isolated a substance inside the coffee bean. They named it caffeine, a simple molecule, light, invisible, and powerful. Caffeine did not add energy. It did something more subtle. It blocked fatigue. How caffeine really works. Inside the human brain, a chemical called adenosine slowly builds up during the day. Adenosine signals tiredness. It tells the body that it is time to rest. Caffeine looks similar enough to adenosine to take its place. It sits in the same receptors, quietly, deceptively. The brain does not receive the message of fatigue. You do not gain energy. You lose the awareness of exhaustion. For a while, the illusion of wakefulness. This is why coffee feels gentle. It does not push. It does not shout. It simply removes resistance. Thought flows longer. Attention stretches. Sleep is postponed. The body continues working on borrowed time. The body adapts. The human body is patient. If caffeine arrives every day, the brain adjusts. It creates more adenosine receptors. It learns to expect stimulation. This is tolerance. The first cup feels magical. The 100th feels normal. And the absence is felt, withdrawal. When coffee is suddenly removed, adenosine rushes in. Fatigue becomes heavy. Headaches appear. The body asks for balance. This is not addiction in the dramatic sense. It is adaptation. The body adjusting to a rhythm it has learned. Coffee and identity. Over time, coffee became more than a drink. It became a personality trait. I need coffee to function. I am not human before my first cup. Don't talk to me until I've had coffee. These phrases spread across cultures. They were jokes, but they carried truth. Morning rituals. Coffee anchored the day. The sound of boiling water, the aroma rising slowly, the warmth in the hands. These rituals mattered as much as the caffeine itself. They signaled transition from sleep to waking, from rest to effort. Coffee became a bridge between states of being. The extended day. With coffee, the day stretched. Work did not end at sunset. Study continued into the night. Cities glowed longer. Artificial light and caffeine worked together. One removed darkness. The other removed fatigue. Sleep retreated. The cost of delayed rest. The body remembers sleep even when the mind ignores it. Chronic stimulation creates imbalance. Rest becomes shallow. Sleep becomes fragmented. Dreams become shorter. Coffee does not eliminate sleep. It negotiates with it, often unfairly. The culture of productivity. As societies modernized, coffee aligned perfectly with productivity. It rewarded effort. extended output, reduced visible fatigue. Being tired became unacceptable. Coffee softened the edges of exhaustion and made it invisible. The quiet dependence. No needles, no smoke, no stigma. Coffee dependence was polite, encouraged, shared. Meetings happened over coffee. Friendships formed over coffee. Ideas were born over coffee. It was everywhere, the body in the background. While culture celebrated coffee, the body adapted silently. Heart rate adjusted, sleep cycles shifted, hormones recalibrated. Most people noticed nothing. The changes were subtle, a soft contradiction. Coffee was once used to stay awake during prayer. Now it was used to stay awake during labor. The goal changed. The effect remained. Wakefulness was valuable. Rest was postponed. A moment of stillness. As you listen now, perhaps your breathing has slowed. Your body is doing what coffee once delayed. Resting. This story does not require your alertness. It will continue, whether you are awake or asleep. Looking ahead, coffee had conquered the body. It had aligned with science. It had integrated into daily life. But a new chapter was coming. One of brands, machines, speed, and global habits. Coffee was about to become modern. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the world was changing quickly. Cities grew taller, factories grew louder, time moved faster, and coffee moved with it, from beans to machines. For centuries, coffee had been prepared slowly. Beans were roasted by hand, ground carefully, brewed with patience. But modern life had little patience left. Machines entered the process. Grinding became mechanical. Brewing became standardized. Timing became precise. Coffee was no longer personal. It was efficient. The rise of the espresso. In Italy, a new idea emerged. Pressure, by forcing hot water through finely ground coffee, a stronger drink could be made. In seconds, espresso was born. Short, concentrated, intense. It matched the rhythm of the modern city. Drink quickly, return to work. Coffee as speed. Espresso bars spread. Standing counters replaced chairs. Conversation shortened. Movement increased. Coffee adapted to the pace of urban life. It was no longer about staying awake all night. It was about staying sharp all day. Instant coffee. Then came convenience. Coffee without brewing, without waiting, without ritual. Instant coffee dissolved into hot water. Flavor was sacrificed. Speed was gained. For soldiers, workers, travelers, instant coffee was perfect. Wakefulness in seconds. Coffee and war. During global conflicts, coffee became strategic. Soldiers received rations of caffeine. Factories ran through the night. Governments ensured supply. Coffee supported endurance during crisis. It became associated with resilience. The office cup. As offices replaced factories, coffee followed. Break rooms, paper cups, scheduled pauses. Coffee breaks became official. Time was divided into productive segments, punctuated by caffeine, brands, and identity. In the late 20th century, coffee became branded. Not just a drink, but an experience. Chains standardized taste. Logos replaced local cafés. Consistency replaced variation. Wherever you went, coffee tasted familiar, comforting, predictable. Starbucks and the third place. Coffee shops became something else. Not home, not work, a third place, a space to sit, to think, to exist. Coffee was no longer rushed. It slowed down again. Customization, milk, foam, sugar, syrups. Coffee became personal. Names were written on cups. Orders became identities. Your coffee said something about you. Coffee as culture. Coffee shops became symbols of creativity. Writers typed, students studied, freelancers lingered. The aroma became familiar across continents. Coffee unified spaces. The paradox of modern coffee. Coffee sped life up. Then it created spaces to slow down inside it. Both things were true. A quiet evening thought. As the modern world glowed with lights and screens, coffee remained constant. A small ritual inside a fast system. Drifting forward, the story is almost ready to turn again from global brands to global questions. Coffee was everywhere, and people began to ask, what does it cost? As coffee became part of daily life, in nearly every corner of the world, a quiet question began to surface. Where does it come from? For centuries, most drinkers had not asked. The cup arrived warm. The aroma was familiar. That was enough. But the world was changing again. The distance between cup and origin, modern coffee traveled far, thousands of miles, across oceans, through hands unseen. Most people who drank it had never seen a coffee plant, never met a farmer, never touched a ripe coffee cherry. The distance was comfortable. It allowed the drink to feel simple, the return of curiosity. In the late 20th century, curiosity returned, not everywhere, not all at once. But slowly, people began to ask about flavor, about origin, about process. Coffee started to have stories again. The rise of specialty coffee. A new movement emerged. Specialty coffee. Beans were traced to specific regions, specific farms, sometimes even individual fields. Flavor notes were discussed softly and carefully. Fruit, chocolate, floral. Coffee became something to notice, slowing down again. Preparation slowed, hand grinders returned, pour-over methods spread, brewing became intentional. Time was allowed back in. The cup became a moment of focus inside a distracted world. Ethics entered the cup. With awareness came discomfort, low prices, unstable incomes, harsh labor conditions. Coffee had always been global. Now its inequalities were visible. Certifications appeared. Fair trade, direct trade, sustainability, not perfect solutions, but attempts. The farmer reappears. For the first time in centuries, farmers had names, faces, stories. Coffee drinkers learned who grew their beans. The cup felt heavier, more meaningful. The environmental question. Coffee depends on climate, temperature, rain, altitude. As the planet warmed, coffee became fragile. Regions shifted. Yields changed. Uncertainty grew. The future of coffee felt less certain than its past. Consumption and awareness. Drinking coffee became an act of choice, not just taste, but values. Some drank less, some paid more, some paid attention. Coffee slowed people down in a new way. The modern contradiction. Coffee asked for mindfulness, yet it still fueled busyness. Both truths lived together. A quiet moment. As this story continues, you may feel yourself drifting. The details soften. The rhythm steadies. That is part of the design. Coffee once kept people awake. Tonight, this story does not. Looking ahead, coffee had become conscious, aware of its past, uncertain of its future. The final chapters were approaching. As the 21st century progressed, coffee continued to travel, not across oceans this time, but into the heart of modern life itself. Technology, speed, and innovation reshaped the way coffee was grown, sold, and consumed. Yet its essence remained the same. Coffee and technology. Machines changed everything. Espresso machines became smarter. Temperature control precise. Pressure exact. Automated grinders ensured consistency. Apps tracked brewing times. Coffee roasters measured humidity, airflow, and bean density. The drink was no longer just a cup. It was a controlled experience, a science. Coffee in every home. Home brewing evolved. Single-serve pods, smart coffee makers, programmable machines that brewed before anyone even woke. Coffee was no longer just a morning ritual. It became a lifestyle. People carried it in insulated bottles, in reusable cups, in cups designed to reflect personality. It traveled everywhere, to offices, classrooms, and cities that never slept. The cultural shift. Coffee, once a luxury, once a stimulant, was now cultural identity. It defined neighborhoods, cities, even countries. From cafés in Paris to small bars in Tokyo, coffee became part of belonging. And with belonging came creativity. Writers typed in the quiet corners. Musicians sipped before shows. Students lingered in libraries, cups at their sides, mind awake, body calm. Coffee and globalization. Coffee had never been more global. Blends mixed beans from multiple continents. Flavors combined history, culture, and climate. Each cup was the result of hundreds of hands, countless decisions, and unseen journeys. The world grew smaller, one cup at a time. The ethics of consumption. But with globalization came awareness. Consumers began to question, where does this coffee come from? Who grew it? Under what conditions? And at what cost to the planet? Ethical consumption became part of the experience. Certifications multiplied. Sustainability became a goal. Traceability became a trend. Coffee and innovation. Innovation did not stop at beans or machines. New flavors emerged. Nitro coffee, cold brew, coffee cocktails. Scientists explored chemistry. Coffee labs tested extraction, acidity, and aroma. Coffee was now as much a science as it was a comfort. Coffee and the individual. The ritual returned, even in a fast world. Morning cups remained sacred. Breaks at work became moments of reflection. Even fleeting pauses allowed awareness of self. Coffee could be quiet. Coffee could be loud. It could awaken the mind or simply soothe it. Coffee and sleep. Even in a world obsessed with productivity, coffee still coexisted with rest. People learned moderation. Awareness returned. The relationship with coffee became personal, almost meditative. Each cup a reminder. Wakefulness has a rhythm. Rest has a rhythm too, and both must exist. The quiet revolution. From Ethiopia to Yemen, from Europe to the Americas, coffee had transformed the world. Empires had risen and fallen. Trade routes had shifted. Cities had awakened. Laborers had toiled. And now, in the 21st century, coffee quietly shaped human culture without force, without noise. It simply existed. It simply persisted. Looking forward, tonight, as you drift, consider the cup in front of you. It is more than a drink. It is history, science, culture, ethics, technology, personal ritual. Coffee has traveled far, from mountain forests to global cities, from mystical ceremonies to smart machines. And it is still traveling, still changing, still present. A soft pause. As you listen, let your breathing slow. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let the world fade. The story will continue. Even if you fall asleep, it will continue. Without rush, without alarm, softly, gently, just like this night. Coffee has always been more than a drink. And in the modern world, it has quietly become an art. From the careful selection of beans, to the precision of roasting, to the ritual of brewing, coffee is both science and ceremony. The art of roasting. Roasting coffee is a slow dance. The green beans are alive with potential. Heat transforms them. Time shapes flavor. Aroma emerges like a whisper. Color deepens gradually. The process requires patience, attention, and care. 1 minute too long, 1 degree too hot, and the subtle balance shifts. It is a quiet art performed without spectacle, yet with profound effect. The science of flavor. Modern coffee is as much chemistry as tradition. Acidity, sweetness, bitterness, and body combine to create complexity. Each origin has its notes. Ethiopian beans, hint of berries and florals. Brazilian beans offer chocolate and nuts. Central American beans balance citrus and caramel. The barista becomes a scientist, tuning variables with precision. Water temperature, grind size, brew time, all carefully calibrated to extract the essence of the bean. Pour over and meditation. One modern ritual is the pour over. Water slowly dripping over coffee grounds, spiraling downward, steaming gently. Watching it, you notice the rhythm. A meditation in motion. It is slow, intentional, and calming. A contrast to the hurried mornings of old. Each drop connects you to mountains, farmers, trade, history, and the present moment. Latte art and visual pleasure. Even foam and milk have become expressions of art. Baristas create patterns, hearts, leaves, swirls. The cup becomes a canvas. A brief, fleeting moment of beauty. Appreciate it quietly before the drink disappears and the moment fades. It is a reminder that beauty can be found in the ordinary, even in a beverage. The global ritual. Coffee now has rituals across the world. In Italy, the espresso is a quick moment at the bar. In Japan, slow pour-over ceremonies highlight precision. In the United States, a cup accompanies study, work, and conversation. Despite differences, all rituals share a rhythm. The act of preparing, waiting, and drinking creates pause in an otherwise busy day. A pause that the body needs. A pause the mind craves. Coffee and mindfulness. Even in a world that moves too quickly, coffee encourages mindfulness. Every sip, every aroma, every texture can be noticed and appreciated. The mind slows. As the body drinks, it is a ritual both ancient and modern, scientific and emotional, personal and shared. The quiet connection. A cup of coffee connects the drinker, the barista, the farmer, the soil, the sun, the rain. Every sip carries a story across continents and through time. Even tonight, as you listen, the story continues quietly in your mind, linking history to the present and to your rest. The night ritual. For many, coffee is not just for waking. Evening cups, decaffeinated or lightly brewed, mark reflection. They mark company. They mark ceremony. It is not about alertness, but about presence. Even in the quiet of night, coffee can be a companion, a gentle reminder of connection, of care, of ritual, a moment to rest. As this story slows, let your thoughts drift. Imagine the steam rising, aroma curling softly, the cup warm in your hands, the world quiet outside your window. All of history, all of culture, all of science condensed into this one quiet moment. This is the magic of coffee, both awake and calm, both past and present, both personal and universal. Coffee has always accompanied thought, from the first monks in Yemen to the bustling cafés of Paris, from quiet home rituals to modern specialty bars. Coffee has been a companion of ideas, awakening creativity. The mind works in rhythms. Long stretches of focus, punctuated by pauses, yield insight and reflection. Coffee supports these rhythms. It does not create ideas by itself, but it clears the fog. It extends attention. It sharpens perception. Writers, artists, and thinkers have long relied on coffee to sustain their creative process. The European salon, in the cafés of Europe, conversation was the art. Baristas did not know it, but the rhythm of pouring coffee helped shape philosophy, economics, poetry, politics. Ideas passed slowly, over cups, over quiet laughter, over the gentle hiss of steaming milk. The cafe became a laboratory of thought, a quiet workshop for the awake mind. Late night hours. Coffee is the companion of the night. While the world outside sleeps, the drinker can work, study, or think. The night becomes longer. Ideas stretch farther. Silence deepens focus. The modern city pulses quietly. Streets dimly lit, offices humming, and somewhere a cup of coffee is poured. It is in these moments that coffee reveals another truth. Wakefulness is not just physical, it is temporal. It is the shaping of time itself. Global nightlife. Coffee fuels life after dark. In Tokyo, late-night cafes glow with students and creatives. In New York, 24-hour coffee bars keep city rhythms alive. In Stockholm, the soft light of small cafes accompanies quiet conversation. Across continents, coffee supports the hours that sleep has not yet claimed, a silent guardian of the night, the creative ritual. Many artists and writers develop rituals with coffee. Some grind beans slowly by hand. Some measure temperature and timing meticulously. Some sip deliberately, pausing to watch steam curl, to inhale aroma, to feel the warmth in their hands. Coffee anchors time. It creates a rhythm, a gentle frame for creativity. It becomes meditation and inspiration simultaneously. The quiet collective. Even alone, coffee connects. It links drinker to farmer, to barista, to every cup ever brewed. Across history and continents, coffee creates a quiet collective consciousness. The act of drinking becomes both private and shared. It links night to day, past to present, ritual to innovation, balancing night and rest. While coffee can stretch the night, it does not replace rest entirely. Even in the creative hours, the body asks for calm. The modern drinker learns to balance, sipping slowly, breathing deeply, not chasing wakefulness endlessly. Coffee becomes a rhythm, not a race, a companion, not a driver, a soft invitation. As you listen tonight, perhaps your thoughts are slowing, perhaps your eyes are heavy, perhaps the quiet rhythm of the story and the imagined warmth of coffee draws you into a calm state. This is part of its magic. Coffee is at once active and passive, stimulating yet meditative, both history and present. Looking forward, coffee has traveled far, from mountains and monasteries, through empire, industry, and global commerce, to specialty cafés, art, and personal rituals. Yet the story is not finished. The world continues to wake and sleep, and coffee continues to flow, quietly, steadily, always part of human experience. Coffee is not just a drink. It is an experience, a combination of history, chemistry, and sensation. Each cup carries aroma, taste, texture, warmth, and memory, and the mind notices all of it, even as it drifts toward rest. The science of taste. Coffee contains hundreds of compounds that interact with taste buds and the olfactory system. Sweetness, bitterness, acidity, body, aftertaste, each creates subtle effects. Acidity is often bright, crisp, lifting the flavor lightly. Sweetness is soft and comforting, balancing the bitter notes. Bitterness provides depth, a quiet anchor for the senses. Body is the texture, how the drink feels across the tongue. The interplay of these elements creates complexity, and complexity asks to be noticed. Aroma as memory. Much of what we perceive in coffee comes from smell. Aroma triggers memory. A whiff of freshly ground coffee may evoke distant mornings, cities you've walked through, cafes long ago visited. The brain links scent with emotion, so that coffee is always partly a memory and partly a present sensation. Even tonight, just imagining the aroma can create a gentle calm, a mental connection to warmth, comfort, and history, texture, and temperature. Coffee also communicates through touch. The warmth of the cup, the smoothness or grit of the brew, the thickness of milk or foam. Temperature itself is a sensory experience. Hot coffee encourages alertness, but slowly sipped, it becomes calming. The ritual of holding the cup, lifting it slowly, and feeling its weight anchors the body. Slow brew methods. Modern techniques emphasize sensory awareness. Pour over, siphon, and cold brew. Slow down preparation. The drip, the bloom, the gentle steaming become almost hypnotic. Watching water meet grounds, seeing the liquid deepen in color, noticing each release of aroma is both science and meditation. The drinker becomes aware of how coffee evolves from bean to cup, the sensory experience of craft. Baristas now calibrate water temperature to the degree, brew time to the second, grind size to microns, pouring technique to flow rate. This precision extracts maximum flavor. Each cup becomes a curated experience. The sensory journey is long and detailed. It asks the mind to slow. It encourages the body to notice, and it rewards calm attention. Coffee and the body. Caffeine itself interacts with the senses. It heightens perception subtly, increases alertness, and allows the mind to focus on detail. Even the awareness of flavor becomes enhanced. For those drinking slowly, sitting with aroma, taste, and warmth, coffee becomes a full sensory meditation. The art of savoring. Savoring coffee requires nothing else. Sit, inhale, sip slowly. Notice body, mind, and breath. Each sensation unfolds in layers. Aromas deepen. Textures linger. Flavors shift. This slow appreciation creates a rhythm that echoes across centuries. From the first brewed cups in Ethiopia to modern cafes across the world. Coffee as mindfulness. Coffee can slow time. Even in a fast world, the act of drinking it carefully creates pause. The mind focuses. The body relaxes. Attention rests on small, gentle experiences. The rise of steam, the first sip, the warmth in the hands. It is a sensory ritual, quiet, personal, yet universal. A soft, involving pause. As you listen tonight, imagine the cup in front of you. Steam rises slowly. Aroma drifts upward. The warmth touches your hands. Your lips meet the rim. Each sense awakens gently. Each sense prepares the body for calm. Each sense reminds you that history, science, and care all converge in this quiet, sensory moment. Looking ahead, coffee is a story of human attention, how it awakens, sharpens, and focuses. But it is also a story of awareness, how we notice, savor, and connect. The next chapters will explore the modern role of coffee in global culture, in lifestyle, and in the rhythms of daily life, while still honoring rest, sleep, and reflection. Coffee is more than a drink. It is a link, a quiet connection between people, places, and time. From the first gatherings in Ethiopia to modern cafes around the world, coffee has always been shared, and sharing creates bonds. The cafe as community. Cafes are small worlds. Inside, people meet, pause, and reflect. Some write, some read, some talk quietly. The cup is a social instrument, an excuse to gather, to linger, to notice each other. Baristas become familiar faces, books line the walls, chairs invite slow sitting. Even the act of ordering becomes part of a gentle social ritual. Names on cups, friendly smiles, moments of human recognition, coffee, and conversation. Coffee invites conversation. It is not a drink to rush. It is not a drink to hide behind. It encourages presence, listening, and response. People speak differently over a warm cup. Voices soften. Ideas emerge. Laughter and thought intermingle. Through these quiet conversations, coffee continues to shape culture, creating a slow, thoughtful society. Within the fast world outside, creativity and flow. Coffee nurtures creativity. Writers and artists have long relied on it to focus. The body wakes gently, while the mind explores possibilities. Ideas flow. Connections emerge. Moments of insight appear in the calm between sips. Modern creatives often treat coffee as a companion to flow, a ritual, a pause, a focus anchor, pauses and reflection. Coffee is a pause in time. Even in busy lives, the act of drinking slows the rhythm. It allows reflection. It creates space for thinking. It honors the moment, holding a cup, watching steam rise, inhaling aroma, feeling warmth against the hands. All of these details invite calm. All remind the mind that life is not only movement, but also observation, global connections. Coffee connects the world. A cup in London might contain beans from Colombia. A cafe in Tokyo might prepare Ethiopian beans. Each sip links farmers, baristas, and drinkers across oceans and continents. History, labor, and culture meet quietly in every cup. Even tonight, listening to this story, you are connected to that network. A chain of care, ritual, and flavor. The modern third place. Modern coffee culture has created what sociologists call the third place. Not home, not work, a space in between. Cafes, small and intimate, invite thought, presence, and connection. People linger, working, studying, conversing, all while anchored by coffee. The third place slows life and fosters interaction. It supports culture, creativity, and community without needing urgency or rush. Mindfulness in modern life. Coffee encourages mindfulness. In a world filled with noise, it allows you to focus on one thing at a time. The aroma, the warmth, the taste, the moment itself. This awareness restores balance. It teaches patience. It reminds the mind that even small, simple rituals can shape experience profoundly. A quiet evening reflection. As you listen tonight, imagine the warmth of the cup, the gentle aroma, and the slow rhythm of sipping. Let your body settle. Let your thoughts drift. Notice the connection of this cup to history, to humans, to craft, and to care. The story of coffee is a story of presence, of ritual, of connection. Even as you sleep, it quietly continues, linking all the past, all the people, and all the places. Looking ahead, coffee has shaped empires, industries, and human bodies. It has inspired creativity, anchored rituals, and connected communities. In the final block, we will explore the full reflection of coffee's journey, its past, present, and quiet future as it flows gently alongside our lives through wakefulness, rest, and memory. Tonight, we have traveled together from the hills of Ethiopia to the deserts of Yemen to Europe, the Americas, and into modern cafes around the world. Coffee has been more than a drink. It has been a companion, a guide, a quiet witness to human life, the thread through time. Coffee connects eras, monks seeking alertness for prayer, scholars debating in European coffee houses, laborers and farmers sustaining global economies, modern creatives pausing for inspiration. The cup in your hand tonight is part of a story that spans centuries. It is history distilled into warmth, aroma, and flavor, the balance of wakefulness and rest. Coffee has always walked a delicate line. It keeps people awake, alert, and focused. Yet it also encourages pause, ritual, and reflection. It teaches us balance, how to be present in action, and how to be present in stillness. The body and mind adapt. Awareness deepens. Rituals provide comfort. And even as coffee extends the day, it reminds us of the calm we carry inside. The science of connection. From caffeine to aroma, from texture to temperature, every cup of coffee is a sensory journey. It engages the body. It sharpens the mind. It creates connection between drinker and maker, between origin and cup, between past and present. Even tonight, as you listen, you are part of this chain, a silent witness to history, a participant in ritual, community, and creativity. Coffee has shaped human culture. It has encouraged conversation, sparked ideas, fostered friendships, and created spaces where creativity can flourish. From ancient gatherings to modern cafes, coffee has been a quiet companion of thought. It has allowed minds to stretch and hearts to pause. And in this way, coffee has always been human. Ethics, awareness, and care. In the modern world, coffee also reminds us of responsibility to farmers, to the environment, to future generations. Every cup carries stories, and every sip is an opportunity to remember that care and consciousness matter, even in small, quiet ways. A night of reflection. Tonight, you may feel your body softening, your breath deepening, your mind slowing. Imagine warmth in your hands, aroma drifting slowly, the gentle sound of liquid poured, a moment anchored in time. Coffee has always created such moments. Pause, awareness, reflection, connection. Even as it moves the world forward, it reminds us of stillness, the quiet future. The story of coffee does not end. It continues in every cafe, every home, every cup poured. It travels quietly with humans, across oceans, across cities, across time. Its rhythm mirrors ours. Wakefulness and rest, action and pause, movement and reflection. Even as you drift into sleep, coffee story flows gently alongside yours. A final pause. Now let the warmth fade. Let your hands relax. Let the aroma linger in memory. Let the story dissolve slowly into rest. Coffee has traveled far, from mountain forest to global culture, from ritual to science, from alertness to mindfulness. And tonight, it travels quietly with you. Sleep now. The night is calm. The story has been told, and all is at peace.